In this lesson, we're going to study some more advanced chicken picking licks by learning 2 passes over this chorus progression. The chorus progression is just a typical progression that you might hear over a fast rockabilly country song like this. So we'll show you the jam along video demonstration, then we'll go over everything note by note, and then we'll put up the backing track so you can play it yourself along with the band. Alright, I'll play through the first pass of the solo nice and slow but in tempo, then we'll go through it note by note and then at full speed along with the metronome. As always, this is tabbed out completely beneath the video player at sixstringcountry.com. So here's how it looks. Alright, so this progression is in the key of, it's really E blues. And we're kind of playing between the major and the minor scale in the key of E. We've got 1 chords, which are E chords, 4 chords, which are A chords, and 5 chords, which are B chords. When it's obvious as we're going through the solo, I'll kind of tell you why these riffs work over these chords. So the first chord in the progression is the 4 chord, the A. And the first riff that we're going to play over that A chord is this. So this is kind of an obvious one, right? So an A chord is like this, is an A bar chord. And another way to play an A is like this. And so we're really, if we arpeggiate the A, we're kind of hitting all the notes in the A chord and we're just using an A blues scale to kind of connect the dots. So we're starting with the open A string. 3rd fret, hammer on to 4, and then we've got 2nd fret of D, another pick there, hammer on to 4, 2nd fret of G, and then slide up from 4 to 6 on G, and then we're going to cluck with the 2nd finger of our right hand, the 5th fret of B. So far we have. Now the band's going to change to an E chord and our riff will be this. And so again, this is one way to play an E chord, right? Or if we wanted to play an E7, we could play that. So this riff is really just touching a lot of these notes, kind of going back and forth between the notes in the E dominant 7 chord, and we're using an E blues scale to connect them. So we're going. So that's 4th fret of G, 5th fret of B. We'll pick and cluck that at the same time. And then same thing up here. We'll do 6th fret of G, 5th fret of B, pull off to 4 on the G string. Over to the 4th fret of D, and then cluck with your 2nd and 3rd finger on your right hand. 4th fret of G, 5th fret of B. So that's. And then we'll do this riff. So we'll start on the 6th fret of G, pull off to 4, slide up from 6 to 7, and then cluck the 5th fret of B, and then cluck the 7th fret, pull off to 5, back to the G, 7th fret, back to the B string, G string, 7th fret, slide down to 6, pull off to 4, then over to the D string, 6th fret, then kind of roll that middle finger down to the 6th fret of G, cluck it, and then cluck the 4th fret of the G string. So let's play everything that we have so far from the top of this pass. Alright, now we're kind of working into a B chord that the band's playing. So the band's going to be on this chord, and we're going to continue on and do this. Alright, so this is using double stops. We can think of this as a B7, right? A B dominant 7. So both of these are in that chord, and this is another way to play a B dominant 7. And These are both in that chord. So really, we're using a chromatic walk up with these double stops to get from one B7 to another B7 position. So we'll just be coming off this riff. Then we'll do this. 2nd fret of D, open B, and now we're gonna go up to 2nd fret of both D and the B string, 3rd fret, 4th fret, and now we're gonna slide up the D string first, and then hit the B string, 5th fret, same thing going up to 7. All right, so one more time, that whole thing. And then these next couple riffs are really going to be using E blues scale. So it looks like this. And we're going to end on that note because the band is going to be playing an A chord at that point, or the 4 chord. So we're on the 10th fret of B, bending up, and then hitting the 7th fret of high E. And then 10th fret of B, pull off to 8, and then over to the 9th fret of G, and then a nice hard cluck on the 10th fret of B with some vibrato. So all right, and then we've got the hardest lick of this pass, which is all right, so the first part is just up here in E blues, which is the same as G position 5 pentatonic, right? All right, so we'll be starting here on the 14th fret of the G string, and we'll pull off, and then we'll do a bend on that, 14th fret of G, and then we'll get our pointer finger up here to the 12th fret of B and E, 15th fret of B, pull off to 12, and then a little half bend, pick it again and come down, pull off to 12, 14th fret of D, roll it down to 14th fret of G with a cluck. So one more time. And continuing on, we'll do this. All right, so we're gonna hammer on from 12 to 13 on the G string, and then 14 of D to 12, and then we're gonna pick the 14th of A, pick the 13th, pull off to 12, 14th of low E, and then down to the 10th fret of A, hammer on to 11, and then 12th fret of low E. So that whole riff one more time. So now we're kind of to that closing sequence where we're going to be going down the neck of the guitar on this low E string. And so let's take it from that last little section we learned and learn the closing little sequence. That's where we ended. So we're going to pull off to the low E string and then go back up to the 12th fret, pick, pull off, pick, 10th fret, pull off, pick, 9th fret, pull off, pick, 7th fret, pull off, pick. And now we're going to get to the 5th fret, pull off, and then 3rd fret with a bend, and then open low E string. And then we're going to go 3rd fret to 4th fret, 2nd fret of A, open low E string, and end this first pass on this E dominant 7. So that's 7th fret of A, 6th fret of D, 7th fret of G. So that whole little ending progression. All right, and that's the whole first pass. So when we turn on the metronome and play through it at full speed, it's going to seem really fast because we were just learning it really slow. So the recording is at 130 BPM. So I would maybe start at about 60 or 70, go nice and slow, bump it up at 5, maybe 10 at first, but then maybe 3 to 5 when you start getting up closer to full speed. And when you're ready, you can play it along with me with the metronome at full tempo. 1, 2, 3, go. And here's pass 2, nice and slow. All right, so this thing where we're starting, we're just outlining an A chord again. These are double stops on the G and the high E string. So if we look at this A bar chord, right, these are both in the chord. And then here's another way to play an A chord, or we could do it like this. Oops, sorry. And so these are in the chord and these are in the chord. We're just kind of walking up from here to here. So we've got 6th fret of G, and we've got the 5th fret of high E, and we're going to be picking the G string and clucking with our 3rd finger on that high E string. So we're going to slide into 6th fret of G, pull off to open E, 7th fret of G and 7th fret of high E, pull off, then we got 8th fret of G, 8th fret of high E, pull off, then 9th fret, and then hold it on the 9th fret of high E. So one more time. Now we're going to do the same thing on an E chord. So again, this bar chord up here is an E, right? So these are both in the chord, and we can do that same kind of D major shape to make an E. So those are in the chord. So we're going to do the exact same thing. So slide into 13th fret of G, 12th fret of high E, pull off, then 14th fret of each, 15th, and then this time we're just going to go right up to the 16th fret, and so far we've got this. Then we've got this kind of bluesy riff. So we're sliding into that same kind of E double stop, right? And then we're going to pick the 15th fret of B, pull off to 12th. Then pick the 12th fret of G. And then the 14th fret of B. We're going to use our pick starting there. So we've got... And then a little bend on the 14th fret of B. Pull off to 12. One more time. And then over to the 14th fret of G. So far we've got... And then we've got this. So that's 12th fret. We're going to take our pointer finger and bar across the D, G, and B, and we're going to be kind of picking over this D while our pointer finger is not really making contact. It's kind of a half mute. And then clucking the G and the B string and hammering on with our middle finger to the 13th fret of G. So far we've got this. Then we're going to do this. So again, the B7, that's one way to play it, right? So these are both in the chord. We've got 14th fret of G, 16th fret of B. We're going to do mute, mute, down, mute, mute, up, mute, mute, down. Move it down one fret, and then slide it down another fret. So Next riff is this. So this is all over an A chord, right? Here's an A7, here's an A7, or just the middle strings would be that. So we're connecting this with this. So we're going to be sliding in with our middle finger on our left hand, and we're going to pick this, the 11th fret of D, and then we're going to cluck the 12th fret of G and the 10th fret of B. And then kind of a mute on the D string, 11th fret of G, and then another kind of mute on the D string, but then put your pointer finger down over the D, G, and B string on the 10th fret, or excuse me, I'm sorry, this 9th fret. And then the same thing on the 7th. And then go down to the 5th and do the same thing, but hammer on to the 6th fret of G with your middle finger on your left hand. So far we've got next riff is this. So this same shape we just learned up here, we're going to do down here, because now the band's on an E chord. Slide into the D string, 6th fret. Then you got 7th of G, 5th of B. Then the open D and G string, the open D and B string. And then the 2nd fret of D and B. So both of those back to back would be. Then the closing riff is. All right, so we're in E blues now, right? We're going to start the riff on the 2nd fret of G with a pull off to the open G string. Slide up. So we're sliding up to 4, and then clucking the 3rd fret of B. Then cluck the 5th fret of B, pull off to 3. 4th fret of G, down to 2nd, pull off, then 2nd fret of D. Roll it down and cluck. So far we've got. So continuing on, we'll do this to finish the riff out. So that's just G string open. We're going to cluck it, hammer onto 1. 2nd fret of D, pull off to open. 2nd fret of A. 1st fret of A, pull off to open A. And then 3rd fret with a little bend. And then we've got the open E string, which we're going to hold out for just a second. So one more time, that riff. We finish it like this. This is meant to be a little sloppy, so don't get too hung up on it. We're going to slide in from 2 to 4 on G, cluck the 5th fret of B with a pull off to open, and then get your ring finger over to the 7th fret of G, 7th fret of B with a pull off, 8th, cluck the 8th fret of B, and then up to the 9th fret of both with some vibrato before sliding off. All right, so we're going to turn on the metronome and play it at full tempo. It's going to seem really fast because we just learned it really slow. But I would recommend starting with the metronome a lot slower. The actual recording's at 130 BPM, so maybe start it at 60 or 70 and slowly work your way up 5 or 10 BPM at a time. When you're ready to play it at full tempo, we'll do that together now. 1, 2, 3, go.